Now let's take a look at this data and understand what it says. Each row represents the result of a marketing campaign done by a bank. This bank called up this particular person who was a 58-year-old management employed person who is married, has tertiary education, has no defaults in any earlier loans, has a balance of 2143 in whatever currency this is in, and has a house and has no loan. Previously, whether this person was contacted is unknown. This contact was made on the 5th of May, and the duration of the contact, the call, was 261 seconds. This is part of the first campaign, and there's other information about the previous campaigns where this person was reached out to. The Y column indicates whether this person said yes or no to the current request, which is whether they are interested in this particular product. We see mostly no's, but there are a few yeses scattered in between. And one of the interesting things to look at in this data set is who are the kinds of people that are more likely to say yes. So let us answer this simple question. When a person is contacted, do they say yes or no? In other words, are there certain kinds of people that are more likely to say yes, more likely to say no? Who are those people? Therefore, how should we target them? Now, when exploring this data, we would obviously like to see who are the people that are saying yes and see if we can get a simple profile map of that. So as we've seen before, let's try and filter this data set to see who says yes. To do that, I can go to the home sheet and sort and filter, create a filter, select a sort which is based on yes. So in other words, answering the question, who says yes? And out of the 45,000 people that we've contacted, 5,000 have said yes. But this is a slightly cumbersome way of doing it. I usually prefer keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are a very powerful way of achieving the same task but much faster. The difficulty with a mouse is twofold. One, if you're in one corner of the screen, it takes a reasonable chunk of time to go to the other corner of the screen. The second is precision. I need to narrow the mouse down to exactly this particular location, and it's a very small portion of the screen, and it's difficult to target that small portion of the screen when you're moving across. So to go, for example, to view and from view to, let's say, freeze panes, the amount of time that it takes is considerable. Instead, what if there were a discoverable shortcut for this? Supposing I wanted to select this row, and let's take a different example. Let's say I wanted to create the filters. We have the filters right now. I'm going to remove the filters. To create this, to find out what shortcut keys to use for a specific command, there are two ways. The first is simply press Alt. When you press Alt, it tells you what are all the keys that you can type and what the result will be. So if I now pressed the key H, it will go to the Home tab. If I pressed N, it will go to the Insert tab. If I pressed W, it will go to the View tab. So let me press H. So I'm in the Home tab, and now it tells me for each of the things on the Home tab what I need to press to get to the next level. So if I press S, I will get to the Sort and Filter tab. So I'm going to press S. So I pressed Alt, H, S. And now F is for the filter. So I press Alt, H, S, F, and it has created the filter. Let's do that again. Alt, H, S, F. The filter is gone. HSF, HSF. And you can see that the amount of time that it takes to do it and say it, it's actually faster to do it than say it. I can type Alt HSF faster than I can say Alt HSF. And this is not the only shortcut key. So in fact, if you select this filter and hover over it, you'll find that it says that there's a shortcut key. In brackets on top of the title, it says Control Shift L. So I can instead press Control Shift L, and that will enable the filters, and press Control Shift L again and it disables the filters. Control Shift L is even faster than Alt HSL because Alt HSL has to be typed in sequence and you can get it wrong, Alt HSL. But if you press Control Shift L, it's not in sequence. You can press Shift and Control or Control and Shift, and it has the same effect. So this is a pretty effective way. In earlier versions of Excel, we had a shortcut which translated to Alt DFF, which was for the filter. Now those old Excel shortcuts work as well. So for those of you who are familiar with earlier versions of Excel shortcut keys, don't worry about that. You're not losing anything. The same shortcut keys continue as well. And in fact, my habit of shortcut keys started with Excel 97 and continues. And many of those shortcut keys are still perfectly active. So going forward, for the next few examples, I will show you how to do things, not just from the menu, but also from the shortcut keys, and gradually progress to just shortcut keys.